responsible for this council to let that slide and say, oh, it's gone, we can't do anything about it. In terms of the words in the plan, the words in the RPS, the words in the Unitary Plan Panel's report, under the Definitions Act 1999, words have priority over any maps. And so, Mr. Mayor, I would urge, as a consequence of this resolution, that the irregularity, apparent irregularity, that staff believe have disappeared, the MUL or RUB on Waiheke Island, be rectified with a simple sentence in the regional policy statement along the lines as the panel has said, changes to the rural-urban boundary on Waiheke Island will be dealt with at the future plan change or future review of that district plan as it is migrated into the unitary plan. That is a responsible way to cater for this problem, and it's the only way in terms of sustainable management to deal with it. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Well done. Okay, now Councillor Mike, so I'm going to get Penny here to talk in particular about the issue of addressing Waiheke. So I think that's quite clear, but we need to scrub that up. The second one is a more esoteric comment. Lacuna. You use that word, Councillor Mike, lacuna. What were you meaning?
It completely disappeared. The big
a lacuna. Hole. Well, you learn something new every day. Thank you very much, Councillor Mike. I'll just remember.
I could have said loony, probably more to the point.
Loony, okay, no, I think lacuna was good. That actually really got us stretched. Well done. Okay, now Penny.
Okay, so if you do read the topic report and on page 15, I think you need to read the whole paragraph because it starts off saying a small number of submitters.
I read the whole paragraph.
So I'm just talking to the rest of the governing body, Councillor Lee. A small number of submitters requested changes to the rural-urban boundary. It then goes on to say the panel is recommending that the rural-urban boundary will be in the district plan, and then makes a comment at the end that no changes are recommended.
That's exactly what I read.
It's,
yes, we know.
In the view
perhaps
of,
the rest did not.
In the view of staff, this is more about lazy writing than it is about an intention of the panel to retain the rural-urban boundary.
I object to that, talking about... I don't think Judge Kirkpatrick can be criticised for being a lazy writer.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor.
The reasons that I'm saying that is because in the maps they have removed the rural-urban boundary from the maps. They've made it very clear in their overview report and in all of the other reports that the rural-urban boundary will be at the district plan level. So if we retain the line in the maps that shows the old MUL on Waiheke, there will be no regional rules to manage it. We, as I've said before, as staff, believe the operative district plan for the Hauraki Gulf Islands has enough checks and balances in it in terms of the fact it's very clear about no more urban development except in the existing villages of Waiheke. It has a strategic management area within that plan that makes it clear that the eastern part of Waiheke is not for expansion. And as I've said, the staff are already looking at how they need to work with the local board to bring that part of the plan into the unitary plan. So we are recommending that the view of the panel, if you look at all of their discussion about the RUB, is that it is a district plan rule, and the wording on page 15 is not helpful, but what they're talking about no changes are the no changes that the submitters asked for the RUB on Waiheke, and they were not convinced that they should change anything that in line with what the submitters have asked. But the consequential action of them recommending to remove the RUB from a regional policy statement is that there is no rule applying to Waiheke at the moment. But the district plan provisions have checks and balances in it to enable a proper assessment if a plan change, private plan change or non-complying resource consent is sought.
Okay. Councillor Cam.
Oh, thank you, Mr Mayor. I certainly will be supporting A and B. I think when we saw coming out of Parliament the Labour spokesperson talking about the abolition of the MUL, there seemed to all of a sudden be almost cross-party support for that in whole or part, extending from the left of the Labour Party to the right of the ACT Party caucus. And so I think that this softening of the RUB is a measured way to address the issues, as I'm sure my learned colleague Councillor Quacks will take us through, of yes, there has been, as Councillor Lee has said, some MUL expansion over the last 20 years, but when you put that as a percentage versus the percentage of population growth, land price and house price, there certainly is some demand out there in the community, both at a political level and a house buying level and everywhere else, for that boundary, that very tight boundary that was locked up in the 1999 Auckland Regional Growth Strategy to be softened up somewhat. And my concern, though, Mr Mayor, is around B. I'll be supporting B, but officers who were all for, quote, some containment around coastal villages to retain character and ensure efficient infrastructure, have suddenly turned around on the ball of a pen and said that that a combination of restrictions and structure planning will ensure that they are grown sustainably. My concern around that is that when you look at what the IHP have come back with countryside living, it is a profound increase of countryside living on the northern boundary, pretty much wrapping that transitional zone from urban to rural. Countryside living now pretty much goes from Orewa all the way around to Titirangi. And what I argue, Mr Chair, is that this is not much of a muchness, as because our rural villages and coastal towns are largely, many of them now buffeted by countryside living, which is replacing in many part rural production and mixed rural, that certainly softens the boundary of those towns and will make, is not comparing apples with apples, as because the surrounding zone is a lot softer, it's smaller in acreage, it's easier to transfer titles, and what we will see is it subsequently being easier in practice to initiate and achieve a private plan change. So while the comments by the officers in our reports and even that B makes out that the changes are somewhat benign, I suppose I want to table that the countryside living, which is now profound, and Councillor Webster and I know that is well supported, but nonetheless it will make the expansion of our coastal villages and rural towns in many areas easier for developers to expand, and they will change, and the Council's initial observations about retaining character and efficient transport and infrastructure provision will be harder to achieve, because those boundaries with countryside living around the outside will certainly soften, and our rural towns and coastal villages where demand is increasing will certainly expand with greater ease. But I'll be supporting it nonetheless.
Well done to the member for Riverhead. Much.
Your tag team.
Right, Councillor Bill.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I guess the first thing I put forward was I thought a lacuna might have been some sort of South American rodent, but I now know it's a hole.
It's Lacuna Macata.
Ah. countryside subdivision are happening now. We are seeing development and growth in this city and in the region of Auckland that we've never seen before. Just close to me is the village of Kawakawa Bay, which the mayor in Manukau City Council put in a massive sewage plant at the cost of 30-odd mil, wasn't it, I think?
Oh, no, way over the top, 19 million,
18.
thank you very much.
18.
Come on,
It might have been a bit more than that at the end of the day.
don't exaggerate.
To service a handful of people,
Well, that
500 odd people. So
that bloody
that
contract.
sort of infrastructure will allow a place like Kawakawa Bay to expand. The next village down the road from me, further 15 minutes away, is Clevedon, which has currently got a private plan change to go from around 200 houses to closer to 2,000. These are desirable and nice places to live. There's plenty of examples out from Pukekohe, Paramahoe, Waiuku, Glenbrook. So the combination of countryside living, as Councillor Brewer has mentioned, and the expansion of our villages, whether they be coastal or inland, is a consequence of the growth and of the up and the out. The provisions I really like, our notes in the new sub-B, is the infrastructure provisions that have to go with this. And that's the critical point. Just because something is potentially enabled doesn't mean that it will happen. You still have to have the right roading, the 3 waters, and everything else that goes with it. There are protections and there are boundaries currently in the district plan level. So, Mr Mayor, I'm going to be supporting it.
Right, Councillor Dick?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor, and I really have been encouraged by the panel's pragmatic view around the rub. I think, like many of us, they've probably recognised that the biggest policy failure in the history of Auckland was an inflexible MUL, growth.
It cost us a fortune.
Yeah. It is now.
And so a more flexible rub will go some way towards providing a more competitive land market. And, you know, we were all asked the other day about our conflicts of interest. Maybe one of the conflicts of interest that perhaps we may have overlooked was the fact that many of our properties, if you own property over the last 10 years or 5 years or so, have appreciated immensely. And that, I think, has been evidenced by the fact that many people have stated that the inflexible mull has been largely responsible for that increase in land prices and increase in property values, which, you know, for some people is probably quite a good thing, but economically it's turning out to be a disaster. But even more so, a social disaster for Auckland is that now Auckland has become a city of two halves. Those who own property on one hand, on the other hand, those people who do not have property and will never get into the property market. And for them, education, health, and is being compromised. So Councillor Lee referred to the growth of the mull and the expansion of the mull. Well, Councillor Lee, I can tell you that the spatial growth of Auckland since the regional growth strategy was put in place has been just 8%. 8% increase in all that time, and yet at the same time the population has gone from 1 million to 1.5 million, a 50% increase. So it's not surprising that we're seeing an increase in social issues. Every day I drive along Hobson Street, past the Mission here to get on the Southern Motorway, and what do I see? People lining up at the Mission, people sleeping rough, and that is something that has been caused by this huge policy failure of the inflexible MUL. I'm very happy that the Mayor, that the IHP has seen fit to introduce a more flexible mechanism so that in the future we can have a more competitive land market, and hopefully some of those social disasters that we've seen will be turned around. Councillor Casey, I notice you're laughing, but I don't know why you would be laughing when you've been an advocate, when you've been such a strong advocate for people who are sleeping rough, and I would expect you that you would support this so that you actually give people an opportunity to get into some kind of house.
Nothing to do with Rogernomics, was it?